Okay, good evening and welcome to the November 8th, 2022 regular council meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. And we have an agenda. Anybody have anything to add? Seeing none. We in line for a motion to approve.
So
Moved by Deputy Warden. Seconded by Councillor Bort. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Conflict of interest declaration, anybody who has anything, they can declare now or they can declare once we get to the item if they feel that they're in conflict. Now, we have a presentation. Before we go into the agenda, I have something that I'd like to do prior to, and it's a presentation. And it's a presentation to one of our councillors who was not able. These presentations are usually done at the municipal, the provincial municipal conference. Unfortunately, he was unable to be there, so I brought it with me, but I think it's just fitting to present this to a very long-standing councillor, 31 years, and I think he deserves this. And to you, congratulations. Now the real presentation. We have WSP, and what it is, it's changes to the land use bylaw and the municipal planning strategy. And we had a meeting, PAC meeting, PSC meeting, and with a presentation. And what we're going to ask WSP to do is to give us a quick overview of what the changes were, and then if there's any questions, they can be asked of her. Most of us were here for the presentation, but we won't go through the entire presentation like we had with the committee meeting. But I will ask Erin if she's on to give us a bit of a quick overview of what the changes are. Are you on, Erin?
I am, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Warden. All right, so the changes are presented in the two staff reports that you have available to you this evening. The first one covers a range of housekeeping amendments and amendments that are in relation to interests from the community in some of these types of development and identified through the development officers. So I'll go through the first one really quickly, just talk about the proposed amendments related to group dwellings to start. And for those that weren't in attendance, group dwellings just refer to two or more buildings located on one lot. You can think of these as like little clusters of cottages or houses all on one lot. And the development officer received interest from people in the community wishing to construct this type of housing, but under the existing land use bylaw, you need to have at least 4 units. The proposed and the interest that the development officer received was related to people wanting to do 3 units, usually the house, and additional 2 dwellings. So the proposed amendments are really just to reduce that minimum number of dwellings from 4 to 3. The rest of the regulations would be unchanged. The next is related to permitting small multi-unit dwellings in the CC zone. Sorry. Permitting small multi-unit dwellings in the CC zone. So whereas the group dwellings were multiple small buildings or small dwellings on a lot, this is an apartment, so multiple dwellings within one building. So you can think of these kind of as triplexes or fourplexes, buildings of that nature. So this is really to address an omission, what looks like to be an omission in the land use bylaw, where the municipal planning policy does enable diverse housing types in the coastal community zone. And this type of housing, the small units, the 3 or 4 dwelling units, are allowed in all of the other residential zones as of right, but just not within the coastal community zone. So that table in the land use bylaw, section 11, that tells you what's allowed where. Was just missing the dot there. So this addresses that and brings it in, the land use bylaw in line with the municipal planning strategy. The next one is related to oh, sorry. Are you able to see me now? I had turned my camera on. Is it not? Is it showing? Sorry.
Yes. Yes.
It is? Yeah. Okay. Just got the email. It must have just come through shortly after. My apologies. So the next permitted or change would be permitting light industrial uses as home occupations. So currently the approach in the land use bylaw is that any light industrial use would require, in a residential area, would require a development agreement or a rezoning, and these are kind of longer, more costly processes. There's historic use of some light industrial type of uses being allowed in as home occupations before the new planning documents came into effect, and this happens all over rural areas of Nova Scotia. So the proposed changes are really just to kind of align what people are wanting to do, to have some of these smaller light industrial uses as on their residential properties. And so the proposed changes are to kind of facilitate the smaller scale uses. So they're limited in size. So it would be like less than about 540 square feet within a building, or if it's exterior at about 1,000 square feet. And that's really to just add a little bit more flexibility. And commonly the type of uses people are requesting are things like a building contractor with some equipment, or maybe a bit, home kind of furniture manufacturing, or manufacturing of fishing equipment, and those types of uses. Again, anything that's larger in scale, larger than those size thresholds, would still require a development agreement or a rezoning, but it's just to allow some of those smaller scale uses. The MPS does allow for this, as long as impacts have been considered and mitigated. So it recognizes that these are important types of uses in communities, but that they could potentially have impact adjacent neighboring residences. So it just recommends that there be additional measures in the land use bylaw related to how close they can be to the property lines, and if there should be screening of these types of uses and not occurring in the front yard, and lighting impacts, that sort of thing. So the proposed amendments are all related to introducing some of those light industrial uses, but only subject to certain conditions. There are a number, which I won't go through, there are a number of strictly housekeeping amendments, and these are related to the numbering in the table of contents or in certain sections, or small grammatical errors. The next larger change is establishing fees for planning and development applications. And right now in the land use bylaw and MPS, there's no mechanism to allow the municipality to charge for some of these types of applications. So this change is really setting up and enabling the municipality to start charging for these. So that would require a change in the land use bylaw, and then just to be consistent, change the policy as well in the MPS. But in order to actually start charging, it would also require a change by council resolution to the existing fees and penalties bylaw. In the staff report, it goes through where the proposed fees came from, and it was really looking at what other municipalities in the area are charging for these types of services. I will note that that's not meant to cover the costs, the entire costs of what it would be for these to process these different types of development agreement or development approvals. Something like a development agreement would be at a much greater cost to this municipality, because it would require, my staff time to review, a development officer, legal fees, going through the lawyer as it is a negotiated contract. So this isn't meant to entirely cover that. It's just meant to offset some of that cost. And I think that the last one, I guess, that I will get into is the fur farms. And this is really just adding the enabling policy. So back in the summer of 2021, council had made the change to allow new fur farms only by development agreement in the rural development zone. At that time, with that change, there should have been a policy change in the MPS to enable that to happen. That was omitted, so this is just adding that enabling policy in to bring those two documents into alignment. And I think that was everything on the kind of a summary of that first staff report, which is the housekeeping amendments and the other ones that I just went through. Is there any questions that anybody has on any of those items?
Does anybody have any questions? I don't see anybody. No, there's
Okay.
no questions.
I'll dive into the wind one then, if that works. So the second staff report is related to proposed MPS, municipal planning strategy, and land use bylaw amendments, all related to larger scale wind energy development. I will note that these changes are specific to large scale wind turbine generators or wind farms. There are a number of provisions in the land use bylaw that relate to the smaller scale wind turbines or the micro ones, which you might see on individual properties. These changes don't affect the smaller or the micro turbines. It's just really for the larger wind energy projects. So just to back up a bit on this one, there's a lot of wind energy potentials we know in this region, and there has been sustained interest from wind proponents in locating new wind energy projects within Argyll. But right now, there are a few inconsistencies in the municipal planning strategy and the land use bylaw that really limit wind development and would basically require any proponents to go through an MPS amendment process, which is a longer, more costly process. So as a result, that's been a bit of a barrier for some proponents. So these changes are really about how to facilitate wind energy development in appropriate locations of the municipality and under what conditions and using which planning tools. So the general approach will be the same, which is to allow them by development agreement in the community, coastal community zones and the rural development zones. And it's mostly cleanup between the two planning documents to align the regulations with the policy. The biggest changes are related to the 1 kilometer separation distance. So in the past, it was through the MPS policy, it was recommended that all wind turbines be located at least 1 kilometer from any habitable dwelling. This has been refined so that it is now a 1 kilometer distance, but from permanent dwellings. And the thought behind this was just that, in talking with staff, that it felt it's maybe a little bit too restrictive for wind development and where they could occur, especially in the future as seasonal and camp uses, new camp uses could spring up. This was really to address that by removing it. So now the 1 kilometer separation distance is really just between the turbines and permanent dwellings, seasonal camps, and seasonal cottages and camps wouldn't be captured within that 1 kilometer, but there is introducing a second setback, which would kind of address those safety issues from camps and seasonal cottages and any recreational use of nearby properties. And that is to require a setback from the property line and the turbine itself. And that right now is set to twice the height, or recommended to be twice the height of the total turbine. So that's from the ground until the top of the blade when it's extended at the arc, and not less than 300 meters. So that just means that if the turbine was only 100 meters tall in height, you would still be that 300 meters. But if the turbine was, say, 200 meters in height, that 2 times the distance would then apply. So the distance would then be 400 meters. The rest of the amendments are more or less just to address practicalities related to wind energy development and access roads, that type of thing. I will note on the property line setback, there is a provision that it wouldn't apply where there was multiple properties within the same wind farm. So if they were on different property lines, you wouldn't have to be set back between those wind farm properties, but you would from kind of if you think of it, the exterior boundary of the site where it was adjacent to another use, like a residential or recreational, but not within the property lines within one wind farm development, if that makes sense. Yeah. So is there any questions on the wind farm regulation changes?
Anybody? No? I don't see anybody wanting to ask questions at this time. So that's the end of that presentation then. Do you have anything else, or is that basically it?
Yep, that's just a quick overview from each of the two reports. I don't have anything else if there are questions, but I can
Okay.
just stay on in case there's any that come up through discussion.
Nobody has come up for questions. Thank you very much, Aaron. And from here, what we have to do is, with the presentation to the Planning Advisory Committee, the Planning Advisory Committee is recommending that we have a motion to accept the first reading. That's what we would be doing here. We would be accepting the first reading of the changes to the land use bylaw and the municipal planning strategy. So, it's moved by Councillor Digdon, seconded by Councillor Sonia. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Okay, I guess we're okay, Erin, and we've, as you've seen, we've accepted the first reading of the changes. So from here, then we have to go to public and, yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
One thing that I didn't say is we have regrets from Councillor D'Entremont, and Councillor Surratt has indicated that he was going to be here, but probably going to be late because he was traveling from a meeting in the valley. So, okay, now we have another presentation, and the presentation we have is from Carrie Monroe from the Chamber of Commerce. That's okay. Take your time. She didn't want to be called Renee. Now, who can get in there now?
It's a safety issue. It's gonna take us a week.
Yeah. Planning and yeah. You're on. Can you turn your mic on, please? There you go.
Red? Red's good. Red means go. Okay. Good evening, everyone. I think I know most of you in the room, and thank you for having me here tonight. I'm Carrie Muse, no relation to Warden Muse, no conflict there. And I'm very happy to present you some information. I sent out a package, and I think you probably had time to read it over and absorb. There's a lot of information there, so I can address any questions you have about that. I'm the chair of the Chamber of Commerce, but I'm also the chair of the CNOC committee. And CNOC means Community Navigator Oversight Committee. So the position that we created 3.5 years ago, our committee oversees that. So we meet on an almost monthly basis to review all the work that our Community Navigator is doing. We review the budgets, we review where we're going, and we also participate in activities that we organize within the medical community. We do I've done doctor visits myself, as have other members. And I also want to thank Councillor Nicole Albright for being part of that committee. She's been a very valuable member of that. And also want to thank your CAO for his counsel on many issues over the past 4 years. We've appreciated your support and your ear when we're venturing into new areas. So thank you, Elaine, for that. 4 years ago, we started this venture, and we did that when we were in a crisis of anesthesiology physicians at our hospital, and it made national news. And we felt someone has to step up and handle things from a public interest perspective. We can't just rely on the government to handle this. We have to, as a community, take responsibility for the deficiencies and try to help and see what we can do. So it's been an amazing journey. The relationship building that has gone on in the past 4 years has really been the key of aiding in doctor recruitment. And doctor recruitment, doctors are recruited by a whole community, not just by recruiters or the healthcare community and the hospital. They live here with us. They have to be comfortable and happy here, or they're going to leave. So we need to know what their assets are, what they need to be happy, and their families need to be happy. And addressing that has, I think, led to better retention and smarter recruitment too. So why recruit a doctor that we know is not going to be happy here? That's just a paperwork nightmare for everyone. And it's also a nightmare for patients that get attached and then detached from a doctor. So we don't want that one to happen. Naturally, doctors are going to move on to new positions. We've seen it happen where they don't want to leave, but the kids are going to university in Alberta, or an employment change for a spouse. Those things happen for all of us. So those do naturally happen. But wherever we can, we want to prevent that from happening and keep the doctors in our community for a long time, because it's better healthcare for everyone when that happens. Funding wise, as you know, we've been funded by the provincial government, by the 4 municipalities. The Hospital Foundation has been our major funder at $50,000 a year. And also Canadian Tire, the business community has stepped up too. So Canadian Tire has given us $3,333 over the past 4 years as well. And we really appreciate the support. And also Darcy DeSetter, the owner, sits on our CNOC committee, and he's been very helpful as well and involved, and donations from the store as well. So we're really appreciative of that. The province is also a funder as well. So we're now at the stage, the math doesn't quite work out because we've actually extended the money from 3 years to 3.5 years, and we're actually going to make it work for 4 years. So we're asking you for funding in your next budget year. And we've been able to do that mostly because of COVID, because we haven't had to travel to conferences. I should say we haven't been able to travel to conferences because it would have been beneficial to do that. But we've, had constraints in how we can spend the money. So any money that hasn't been spent in a fiscal year is just put into the next fiscal year and used for those purposes. So we have very clear accounting that this money is separate from the functioning of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's all kept separately and tracked separately. And CNOC, the Oversight Committee, and the Foundation has done a very good job of keeping us fiscally accountable and eyes on the books in that respect. The Chamber, we give $5,000 a year as well, but we also give a lot of time and money from our staff that is not accounted for. It's just part of what we do now. And there's such a flow there between our staff supporting Rebecca Rose in her position as community navigator, that it would almost be impossible to separate that out. And that is one thing that I emphasize to a lot of people who have been coming to us and asking us like their advice is, if you can put this position within a group in your community that already has the resources there, the executive director from our chamber who has all the resources at his hands, our admin person, the summer staff that we hire, every single person in that office is helping out with doctor recruitment at some level and at different times, especially with events. So it's very helpful to have it within the Chamber of Commerce for our community, and I recommend it to other communities. When we started out, there were 3. We were the 3rd community in Nova Scotia to do this, to hire a community navigator. We're now one of 10. So it's become almost a standard practice in other communities. I don't think anyone's doing it as well as we are, but and you know, I kind of have some proof of that. But anyway, it's been an exciting venture, and we hope to continue it. So we've been relationship building, not only with the provincial recruiters, because there are we have 2 recruiters for this area. One recruits specialist physicians, one recruits family physicians. So when we came into this, we had to build a relationship with both of those recruiters. Now they're an arm's length away. They're bringing us doctors. They call us. We set up everything for a visit. We do it mutually. They pay for what they can pay out of their coffers, and we enhance it with our coffers. So a couple of weeks ago, we had a dinner here at Wild Roots with one of our actually, this is really exciting. I can't tell you any names, but we had a doctor cold call us from United States, and he saw our advertising down there. And this is the first time this has happened. It's very exciting. He's been practicing for a year as a general practitioner, and he cold called us and said, "I want to come see Yarmouth." So we hosted him. He did do some other communities while he was here, but he's back in touch with us, and we're very hopeful that he's going to make his way here. And kind of the hospitality, we brought together a couple of the other young doctors, people from our CNOC committee, and Rebecca and this doctor, and welcomed him at Wild Roots with amazing food. And he had a day in our hospital where he felt the staff was so receptive. And so that's the kind of things that we do, and it really, you know, uses the whole community to recruit a doctor. So I've got people working on employment for his spouse, and Rebecca's all over this. So if we can get this particular physician to come here, it really opens up a door that, you know, all his contacts. He's from Toronto, but he trained in the States. So it's really exciting to see that kind of circle come around. So in terms of other relationships that we've built, the hospital staff, I think, is amazing, and we've built such a good relationship with them. So they feel supported because they know that this group in the community and all of the government levels are helping them recruit, and doctors recruit other doctors. So if you have happy doctors that want to recruit, then that's a big part of the puzzle. We also have good relationships with Nova Scotia Health. The navigation of Nova Scotia Health is, you know, learning that system, and I won't even bore you with the details, but it's quite extensive and cumbersome for doctors to get through that system to get here. So we're able to help with that now. We know the system. We know who to call. We know to call Doctors Nova Scotia to help with this, and building all those relationships has been integral. Elected officials. You know, we've had a change in the last year, but we're constantly working with our elected officials to get their support and to get their help navigating doctors through the system. Students. This has been a very exciting part of our journey. You probably saw on one of these sheets that we have had contact with 113 medical students have been through here in the past 4 years. So they've come to learn at our hospital. This is not resident doctors, this is just medical students. And actually, I got a Facebook message from a girl I went to high school with, and she said, Carrie, I was talking to Laura, that's her daughter, who's a second-year med student, on her way home from Yarmouth tonight. She was here for 2 weeks, and she was telling me what an awesome week she had. Her preceptors were fabulous. The people, both staff and people in the community, were so friendly and appreciative, and the hospitality was excellent. She said it's really swayed her towards rural medicine. And she goes on, but just that kind of excitement from the students that come here, we see this all the time, and then they ask to come back. So as they come back a few times through their medical relationship and medical training, and then when they're applying for residency, we hope to attract them here. And a huge part of that is Credit Union Place. So I know you're all aware of the beautiful $1 million facility that the credit union has donated to us, and that we built. And it was a community effort to make that happen. But that is an incredible recruitment tool. And it's being managed by Tracy Otten in our chamber office. So she is constantly rotating students out of there, locum doctors, and it's full, completely full all the time. We could actually use another one in case Rick's listening, you know. But what a gift we've had from the credit union. So I just want to quote Brian Moses. Dr. Brian Moses, he's one of our preeminent physicians here. And he says, I have personally felt very supported by the chamber and Rebecca Rose, and feel that it has been a great resource for the residents and has improved our ability to recruit family medicine residents. If you look at other areas, I think we have maintained physician services here better than any other area because of Rebecca and her recruitment efforts. And that's coming from Brian, who's also part of our CNOC committee. He advises us all the time, and he feels very supported by what we've done here. And I've got another statement for you here, and this came from Rebecca, that since we've gotten involved in doctor recruitment, we haven't lost a physician due to unhappiness and bad relations. And that can't be said of before this effort. We had lost 4 physicians just before we took this on. We've lost physicians to retirement, to relocation, to furthering their education, but nobody has left because they've been severely unhappy. And that's not to say that all the doctors are super happy, but I think they feel now supported and that there were people helping them from outside the medical community as well as inside. And that's made a big difference. We've had a net gain of 16 physicians over the past 4 years, and I'd hate to see where we would be, what the number would be if we hadn't been involved in that. I had some quotes from Dr. Melissa Powers, who is in her first year of being family medicine doctor here. She says, the work of Rebecca Rose in the chamber is invaluable to recruitment in our area. As a resident physician, Rebecca was an asset in assisting me and others to find accommodations. She organized many social events that allowed me to get to know other physicians in the area, the community, and their families. This helps foster the collegiality among physicians in Southwest Nova Scotia. As a family physician in the area, I know that I can always ask for support. I've recently taken on the role of faculty undergraduate coordinator, whereby I welcome medical students to the area and match them with preceptors. From the students I've talked to over the past couple of years, Yarmouth and Southwest Nova have gained a reputation as a great location to complete rotations and elective. This is in part to affordable housing options, a warm welcome by our community navigator, administrative staff, and preceptors. It's a fantastic initiative that has been successfully adopted in other areas of the province. To remain competitive in recruitment and retention in Nova Scotia, this initiative in Yarmouth should be continued. And that's from Dr. Melissa Power. And she's a family physician at Oceanside Clinic. Dr. Kenny Yee, I asked him if I could have, his words about our initiatives. And he said, cutting funding to this service spearheaded by Rebecca and the chamber would be like sawing off the branch that is keeping me on the tree. He said, in the current environment of staff shortages, from whatever causes, we cannot afford to take the foot off the gas pedal ever. So Dr. Yee has himself trained 6 resident physicians in the past years that he's been here. So I could go on, and I won't because I value your time. But I would ask you to consider funding us again for another 3 years. The stability of 3 years is excellent because it means we can retain our community navigator, the province, and there are other job opportunities. So we want to have that 3-year commitment so that we can keep Rebecca in the role. She's learned so much and has retained so much knowledge in the past few years. We feel like we've set up systems that we can now proceed through easier because we've had that time to do it. So anybody have questions for me?
Does anybody have questions? Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all the team for the great work you people are doing. Just wondering, your funding now, who all does it come from? As far as municipalities or towns or?
The funding right now is from the Hospital Foundation, is our major
Mhm.
funder at $50,000 per year. The provincial government has given us $25,000 per year. Town of Yarmouth, Municipality of Argyle, and the municipality of the District of Yarmouth have all given $20,000 per year. Barrington has given us $10,000, and Canadian Tire $3,333.33 per year, and the Chamber $5,000 a year.
Okay.
Yeah, so we will be approaching all of those contributors again. At this point, we don't have any reason to think that any will discontinue their support. But you're the first presentation I've done, so yeah. I do want to mention that we are seeing other communities start to offer initiatives to physicians. So we have, in our recent negotiations, start to offer small incentives to physicians, like help with the rent on their first 6 months in their practice. It's incredible the amount of debt they come out of medical school with, and just the getting started is the hardest part. So we want to be able to offer those small incentives. So far, we've been able to fit them into our budget, but if this continues to grow, we will need to find other sources for that. Also, in anticipation of more travel to recruiting conferences, those costs have gone up, food costs have gone up. Fuel costs, as you know, have gone up, and we do anticipate, increased costs. So my ask to you would be for $25,000, not $20,000 over the next 3 years. And we can guarantee we are being as fiscally responsible as we can with every penny. And also, almost every penny except for travel money is spent locally. So when we entertain our physicians, catering, restaurants, everything is done locally. So that money is in essence going right back into our community. We've bought presents for our resident doctors when they graduate. We buy it from local artists. So we're very conscious about that money remaining in our community.
If I may, so a lot of these doctors are doctors that work in Yarmouth Hospital, and that you people are recruiting as well?
Oh, yeah.
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 No, I'm just looking at, I wonder if a person could maybe expand as to how far you look for money, like maybe more down towards Shelburne or more up towards Digby. The only reason I'm saying that, I know it's a regional hospital.
Yep.
And I know a lot of the sick patients, and really sick patients, end up in Yarmouth Hospital before they go anywhere else.
Yes.
A lot of times. And
Yep.
I'm just looking at possible ways of getting you people more funding, that's all.
I appreciate that, Glenn, and we do think about that all the time. The problem with expanding beyond what we're doing right now is that we then become responsible for recruitment in those areas as well. And right now, this is what we can handle. I'm not saying that we can't handle more, and I meet with the warden Penny from Shelburne all the time, and we talk about ideas and bounce things off each other all the time. But we don't want to overextend ourselves, and we really want to focus on family medicine in this area right now before we expand. And to be fair, those communities do have their own chambers, and they are, able to hire recruiters who we would happily work with, and we do work with the part-time recruiter that they have in Shelburne. So I like your foresight of expanding that way, but I don't want to take on more than we can execute properly right now.
No
So,
problem. Just
yeah.
looking ahead, that's
Yep.
all. And
Good idea.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you again for
Yeah.
all you do.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. So anytime I go to a meeting, I tend to come back and report, and often this group has heard me say that it's money well spent, because I see the work that Rebecca is doing.
Mhm.
And just things like you said, the red tape that she's learned to get through to get doctors here. There's an incredible amount of red tape, and Rebecca has worked tirelessly to figure out the fastest way to get doctors here as possible. It's not just about, like you said, it's not just about, it's building that community for them. And she has gone out of her way to do, it's amazing the work that she does. When we were at the conference last week, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities conference, one of the they had roundtable discussions, and one of the ones that I sat at was for doctor recruitment. They knew her name. They knew who she was. And other communities, as you mentioned, not everybody is doing this yet.
Yep.
But other communities are looking to do this, and they're looking at us because we're leaders in this. So for me, I would definitely support this. It is a no-brainer. It's money well spent. We were just saying 25. Do we say 25? Do we say 30? What did we say? We want to be able to continue to support. When you think of a net gain of 16 doctors since this started, that's an incredible amount of doctors that we've been able to recruit and retain. And this started because, Nova Scotia Health Authority has recruiters, but they were for the whole Southwest area. And we just felt like we needed something specific for this area. And that's why we started this position. And it's been unbelievable. And I could go on and on myself, but that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sonia.
Thank you, Warren. Is this inclusive to nurse practitioners as well?
Very good question. We are starting to deal with other disciplines of medicine because it just makes sense to do that. If we see an area of the hospital that is lacking in staff, and we have the ability to connect with those people, we do it. So we haven't officially taken on, nursing, but nurse practitioner is right on the cusp of medicine, and the changes in how they can practice and who they can practice with mean that it will lessen the burden on family physicians. So it's a good question, and we are looking to expand into that. Our hospital is the medical laboratory technicians. They're always recruiting in those different departments. So as we go through this process, if we see that there is a chance for us to help in those areas, we do as well. And it's very important, Ted, as when we deal with medical students. So right now, for example, we know that we have a student from Wedgeport in medical respiratory therapy in Halifax. We all know who she is, and we know that hopefully we can recruit her back to this area. So we did a little thing like send her congratulations when she got accepted into the program, check in with her when she's home, and just make those students feel like they want to come back home and that we're tracking them. So we're doing that with medical students, but we're also doing that with students in other professions that we see that we do need in this area.
I'm glad to hear that, because everything I've heard about nurse practitioners is all positive.
Oh, yes.
So,
Yep. Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
And they're training at our hospital too, just like our resident doctors. So we're so incredibly lucky to have the training program that we do at our hospital for resident physicians, because not every hospital is training residents. So when we have these resident doctors come here for 2 years, that's our very best opportunity to recruit and retain them. And we do retain a lot of them. So
Thank you.
yep.
Councillor
Donaldson.
Donaldson. Yeah, everybody disappeared. Where did everybody go? Because I think I lit your light as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Carrie, we all hear on the news like the number of Nova Scotians without doctors in the 100,000 range, whatever. Do you have numbers for this end of the province and how the 16 net gain in doctors, how that has impacted our numbers in the last 3 years? Am I clear enough on what I'm?
It's a very good question, Richard. So has our number of people looking for a doctor gone down? No, it has not. There's an update sheet in your package, and I brought more of them today that kind of break down who's on the list. One of our biggest factors is people moving here. More people are moving here than a lot of other areas, and they're coming here as orphan patients. Also retirements. We've had some doctors retire that have very large caseloads. The average caseload for a new doctor coming in should be between 800 and 1,200 patients. And we have doctors retiring that had 2,000 to 3,000 patients, which in today's culture that's not where our young doctors are going. And that's not for us to comment on or decide, but so that leaves a deficit as well. We're definitely very high in that number of 24.6% of our population has no doctor right now, but we're not the lowest. We're not the highest. Actually, Pictou County is the highest, which is kind of ironic. So it's definitely a concern. I'd hate to see that number if we weren't doing this. I shudder at what that number would be. And it only takes a few more family physicians in there to drastically affect that number too, to make it go down quite a bit because our population is lower. So if you had that number in Halifax, just think how many doctors it would take to get that down. For us, it's a much lower ratio of doctors. Yeah,
Thank
good
you.
question.
Councillor Boudreau.
Thank you, Warden. Great presentation, Carrie. It's not a question, it's more like a comment. Nicole said it right. It's a no-brainer for the funding, especially after hearing the news, what British Columbia is doing to get their doctors.
Yep.
And we're going to need help because there's going to be provinces that are going to follow BC's solution.
I 100% agree.
Anyway, thanks.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Okay,
No one.
we don't typically do this, but I'm going to make a motion that we approve the funding for the next 3 years for $30,000 for the community navigator.
I will second that motion. And I will also say, before we get the whole question on it, it's not a case if we can afford it. It's a case I believe we can't afford it.
Mhm.
It's as simple as that.
Great.
So, and Alana's looking at me as much as say, where are you guys gonna get the money? But anyway, that's all right.
The do is yours, the how is mine.
That's it. Yeah.
So you're done. So we have a motion on the floor. Any questions or any comments? Seeing none, I'm gonna, your light is on.
Just for accounting reasons, would it be coming to the next spring's budget?
Budget.
Okay, that's all. Like, we don't have to fund it within this year's, okay, good, I'm good.
It would be something, yes, that we would,
Because 30,000 is a lot to fund in existing budgets.
that's right. Any other questions? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried.
I'm overwhelmed. And I want to say that you were the first council that came on board the last time. And now you've set the bar for my future presentations in the next month and a half. And I thoroughly appreciate your support in this endeavor and look forward to coming back with good results 3 years from now. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. A great presentation. Definitely what you're saying, we all agree with what you're saying. You know, this is
Great.
a program that's got to keep going because we need the doctors. And if it's working, then we have to continue. So again, thank you very much for the great
Great.
presentation.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Oh, then it turned on. Okay, there we go. Okay. So we have Councillor Surratt with us now. Made it. So next is presentation. Where am I? I am in a totally different.
I don't know where you are.
I have no idea. It just flipped to. Wow.
Refresh.
I refreshed. This should be the one.
Yep.
November 8th. Now, I don't know why it brought me to that one. Okay, so the next one is the adoption of minutes, October 25th. And the minutes of October 25th. Need someone to move,
Second.
moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. I don't see any business arising from the minutes. Councilors' reports. Does anybody have a report they would like to? Okay, I have Councilor Bork.
Thank you, Warden. I just attended my regular meetings, Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, Nikhil. We had a presentation, I don't know if we had mentioned it last meeting, but we had a presentation on, it's called, I forget, anyway, it's a gaming thing for the residents, and it's something that they interact. So Nikhil had sent out letters for funding, and they received more than enough. So they gave us an example of how it worked, and it's very impressive. It's good for somebody that goes and visits their loved one at Nikhil, and say that person doesn't talk, doesn't move, and say a young child or a teenager goes there and they want to visit their loved one and they don't know how to talk to, don't know what to say. Well, that there would be something that they could interact with their loved one, and it's very, very nice. It's unreal what it does. So if you ever have a chance to go to Nikhil, maybe you could go and see see how it works. So I think it's a very good tool they have for their residents there. I attended the conference in Halifax last week, which was a very good conference. Met a lot of people that I haven't seen for a long time. It was nice to talk to them to see how things were going in their area. We all have the same problems. Most of the conference was basically all the same problems across the province and probably across Canada. Housing, there's the the health situation, and the climate change. That was a big topic. And there's funding that's coming out for the climate change. It's a challenge that they have. Nova Scotia is putting that on. So there's non-profit organizations and the municipalities and various others. You can go online. You can learn all about it. And that's my report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Warden.
Thank you. Lots of it's been busy. I attended a committee meeting for Belleville and Friends, who have put up 2 signs. And during that meeting, they had a boundary review session as well. So it was nice to hear the perspective of the people. They were all from my district too, because it was for Belleville and Friends. So it was good to hear. The aquaculture open house that was held here on October 19th was very well attended. I would say it was a resounding success. I was really surprised at all the people that came and attended. Also, on October 21st, if you haven't heard already, and actually, Councillor Surratt kind of let the cat out of the bag. There was a big announcement made for the Mariners Centre funding, and we were awarded $15.9 million from our federal government and $4 million from the province. So we have a almost $30 million project, and we are meeting, and things are continuing to move. We still meet, and we're still talking about next steps. Committee of the Whole, I've had a meeting with, for the Mariner Centre. There have been several kind of little meetings going on because we're talking about the governance structure for the next steps for our steering committee and what we have to do next. NSFM, I'm not going to repeat everything that Councillor Bork said, but ditto. There was a couple of roundtable sessions that I really enjoyed this time around, where they had tables set up with topics, and you picked what table you wanted to sit with, and you spoke to people. And one of them I went to was Dr. Recruitment, and the other one was the Active Transportation Planning. I thought it was a great conference as well. It was good to network with people we hadn't seen in a while. Yesterday, I'm just trying to think if I went through everything. Yesterday, I had a meeting with Duran from the Mariners Center. We sat with a couple of coaches from the Yarmouth Whitecaps. So they wanted to go through their concerns with us too in terms of the pool and the aquatics facility. And what we assured them of is that I think out there, the perception is that what they see in that plan is exactly what the Mariners Center is going to look like. And we know that that was something we had to submit for application. It is going to change. The design will definitely change, but it was good to get their feedback and to hear what they had to say. And then today we had PAC, Planning Advisory. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. I attended a waste check meeting this morning, and I also was at the aquaculture open house put together by Alex and Charlene, and I think they made a great job. Staff works very hard and makes our decision making quite easy. I also attended the NSFM. That was my first one, so I can't compare it to any other one. I can only say this, that Councillor Surratt was my usher for the duration of the meetings, and it was great to have him by my side. Thank you.
Councillor Surratt.
Like everybody else, the NSFM I attended, Mariner Center meeting, the Mariner Center that I had already said before, explained before, the money they got, that was exciting, that part, I'll admit. The aquaculture, like Councillor Sonia and everybody said, also and Halloween on the trails. That was kind of different and nice to see the kids out there and the parents. That's it.
Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I attended the unveiling of the new veteran monument, the dedication ceremony in West Pubnico that I'm very proud of. Aquaculture open house in Glenwood. Great turnout at that. I made a lot of good contacts, and nice to see some of the younger fishers there looking to diversify instead of keeping all their eggs in one basket, looking to make contacts and looking at other ways of using the fishery. The PAC information session with WSP, and I co-sponsored a children's Halloween party at the Royal Canadian Legion in West Pubnico. And I'd like to thank all of the volunteers that made this happen. And also been corresponding with Santa Claus and hopefully have him down for a party within the next month or so. And also I've been talking with people in the community about different topics. Thank you.
Councillor Boudreau.
Thank you, Warden. Attended a few meetings, especially the aquaculture meeting, very interesting topic. And it was good to see the interest shown by other people. And attended the Nikhil meeting as well. Pretty slow this week, this month. Thanks.
Don't worry, it always catches up.
Yeah.
Councillor Donaldson.
Not much to report this month. Just my regular committee meetings. Been down sick for a while, non-COVID, and had to cancel a few meetings. And the conference I had planned on going, had to cancel. But for the most part, everything's been going pretty good. A lot of community conversations that don't get reported.
Okay, thank you. Going back, my report's there. Going back to that I guess projector is what it is, where it projects your games on the table at Nikhil. And apparently it's good as well for the people with dementia. Like it gives them something that they can kind of interact with other people, on their own. And just a great investment. They were having a bit of a problem with it, but the company's going, I think, from what I hear, they're going to send them a new one, or because there was a few things that, a few glitches in there, but it's just amazing what it does and how it works. Anyway, so my report is on there. I don't know if anybody has any questions, and if not, it's been a busy month as well. So we're to staff report. The first one is the October building permit report. And I will turn it over to our deputy CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. The October report for the building permit is there. You can see that we've this past month we put out 11 permits, which is as per the director, slowed down a bit, but it's still busy in that department. So I don't know if there's any questions around that report, or you want me to continue on with the staff report?
I thought of that. I wasn't sure.
I'll continue on with the staff report. Thank you. To go through the staff report here from the CAO's office, the boundary review. We're continuing to meet with community groups. The CAO actually met with a group today, seniors group. I met with another group yesterday, so we're continuing to meet. But we're coming to the end because the open house is going to be on November 15th here. And we need to get that report by the end of this year. So we're coming to the end, and I think we'll have enough information to finish her off and meet the deadline. So, again, from CAO report, fire department requests from the municipality of Barrington, and there was a discussion here at the last meeting from council requesting a meeting with the municipality of Barrington and their coordinator. What we're going to do is we're going to combine forces here and have the council invited to the meeting that's already planned with the Firefighters Association. And that meeting is going to be on December the 8th. I may be wrong on the date, but I think it's December the 8th. So it's good for both sides, right? For Barrington, they only have to do the presentation once, and for us and the firefighters, everybody's getting the same information. I think that's key too, that everybody is on the same page and gets the same information. So there won't be any issues there. Mariner Center Partnership, the CAO is still working with the other CAOs, and however, as the Deputy Warden mentioned, we were quite excited about the announcement and looking forward to seeing that move forward. We continue to work with wind turbines development companies, and the CAO has kind of put out a food for thought for council here, saying should consider whether we want to organize an information session in regards to wind development in different communities. So again, I put that out there to council to kind of think about, and if they're interested, to let the CAO or myself know. Agriculture was already mentioned here a few times, and it was, as mentioned, well attended, well received, and quite excited about the whole process. And we'll be working to get the report out to the province so that we can get minister approval and move on that great initiative that was started here and being led by the municipality. From the Deputy CAO's office, two things here I just want to mention is 33 banners are up in 4 different communities, and we've received some good feedback, and we're getting calls for people for next year, so it's been a good project. The East Pimlico Trail project is about, I would say, 95% done. I was actually on the trail on the weekend with my own four-wheeler, and it's very nice. The contractor did a very good job there, and I think people are going to be happy with the end results here. So another good project. The bylaw enforcer, as you can see, is busy and still handling some complaints. In the archives courthouse department, you can see that the capital project has started with the courthouse window retrofit. The contractor was there, took out some windows, took some measurements, whatever. Now he's doing actually most of that not on site, but he is bringing it to his business site to make the work on those windows. So that's ongoing, and they're still doing fundraiser to support that project. So that's still going. They've hired a co-op student from École Parent-Bas to assist. The courthouse and gift shop has now closed. It closed on October 22nd. And their fall Argus will be out soon. In the recreation department, they're hosting, or actually, I guess, hosting a memory cafe. And a memory cafe are social events designed for individuals living with memory challenges, along with their family members and care partners. Memory cafes are welcoming social spaces to enjoy coffee, tea, or refreshment and conversation with new friends. And our recreation department is planning that and hosting that on December the 6th at Wild Root. So it's a really good event that they're planning there. They have an ongoing summer program evaluation. So if people want to make look at their survey and make comments about their programming for this past summer, they can do that. It's on our social media. It'll be up until December 1st. We have a few programming things going on: pickleball, dodgeball at local schools. We had the Halloween event that was already mentioned here. It was well attended with over 130 people attending our event. And our tree lighting ceremony will be on November 27th at 6 p.m. at the archives. I will pass on this to the CAO. He has a few other things he'd like to add.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to talk about the NSFM and the conference. I know there's been some discussion on maybe the political side of the conversation. So there is an administrative side to that, and it relates primarily to the shared services agreement that is currently being negotiated between an appointed advisory group, which is both elected and appointed CAOs, to this group that discusses each issue with the province of Nova Scotia. So basically, since 1995, we haven't had a shared service agreement. That was the last time we had a negotiated agreement. And when that happened, I'm not going to say who may have remembered this or may have been a counselor when this was going on, but there was some conversation about community services moving provincially. That was one of the things that they did. They moved that away. So back in the day, that used to be, filling oil tanks and making sure people are housed used to be a municipal responsibility. Now that's provincial. So this is the whole concept of shared service. Once in a long while, it should be a lot, it should be sooner than 1995. But I think everybody would admit to that, is that you would take a look at the services and say, okay, which ones have evolved, which ones are now municipal, which ones are now provincial. So generally speaking, what the conversations has been about is basically what is local and what isn't. So, so the things that are on topic right now that I'm not privy to the conversations, but I've been asked to help those that are. So I obviously can't disclose any of the details, but the things that are on topic that were clearly discussed by our deputy minister for the department, Paula Lafleche, were things like roads, equalization funding, correction services, deficit funding for like Tri-County housing. So we do have that expense currently. We pay 10% of that. And we also have revenues around Nova Scotia Power Grant in lieu. And we have other types of revenue. And the biggest one of all is education. That's our biggest expense. So there's a lot of conversation around which one of these expenses really should be provincial and which ones should be municipal. So roads has been an issue that has been discussed a lot, and that there's never going to be a time where highways and your by-high, your secondary highways will ever be anything other than federal provincial. That'll never change. But what might change is how we look at and pay for local roads. Towns today pay a lot for their local roads. We do not as rurals. So this is one of the biggest differences between the town and a rural municipality. So this has been raised by municipalities on more than one occasion. This will come up. Okay, so I'm saying this now only to prepare you for the kinds of things that could come out and come out fast, because the deputy minister was very clear about him or that department wanting to bring some of these conclusions to your April of 2024 12-month warning. So none of these changes are going to happen in the next year, but they could start to happen in a year from April. Okay, so it could impact our municipalities, and there are certain things that they will delay until the future, because we don't have enough time to solve all of the world's problems. I mean, there's certain things that they'll have to push ahead that they may not have enough information on. And I'll say policing as an example. I don't know that that's on it or not, but I'm just citing that that's a very complicated thing that would take time. Some of the other things, it's been a long time that we've been talking about these things. So I'll only say that our equalization payment represents funding that the province gives to every municipality to even the playing field on the delivery of service. And we receive about $154,000 a year on that. I can assure you that is woefully under what it probably should be and probably will be. But I will warn you that even if it goes up and goes up considerably, other things might go up as well. Other responsibilities might go up and other responsibilities may disappear. Everything's on the table, okay? I will say that equalization has not changed in about 8 or 9 years, has been stabilized for 8 or 9 years, whereas all those other expenses have increased. So things like education, housing, corrections, roads, they've gone up every year. So it's over time now. So I just want to let you know that this is going to come to your attention. You've done surveys with myself. That is all based on the same work. And my role would be to assist the CAOs in negotiating, but not negotiating directly. So that's what I want to update you on the NSFM side of things. That's a very important topic for you in the next coming months. And that's it.
Any questions on the report? Councillor Surratt.
Just a comment for what Scott was mentioning on the fire department meeting. It's at Lake Vaughan, so you'll know. It's you won't be at council. It's at Lake Vaughan. Yeah. Thank you.
Deputy Warden.
I also have a question for Deputy CAO. So I know we haven't officially made a decision on the banners for next year, but likely we're going to do it again. But I've had some people reach out for if we do it again, they've already given names. What do we do with that? I'm afraid I'm going to forget. Is there somewhere, like, is there a document that we're keeping track? Do you know what I mean? Or am I jumping too far ahead?
Very, very good question. It's landed on my desk a few times. Because it's a shared project with the Legion. It's been the Legion responsibility to kind of take those names out. And I did reach out to the Legion this week and ask them the question. Their answer was that to kind of just tell the folks that it's going to be promoted again next year and to look for it next year. But again, I'm willing to take on the names and keep them for you if you wanted to, okay. And we can do that.
Okay.
But,
okay. Councillor Saulnier.
Thank you, Warden. Questions for our CAO who's gone for a drink of water right now. In terms of the changes that you're talking about, or potential changes, our municipalities are quite diverse in terms of financing and money, population, taxes, all that stuff. would the changes be equal across, or would they be based on our financial status, so to speak?
That's an excellent question. The answer to will it be equal? No, it will not. What it will look like will depend on the province's willingness to either reduce expenses that we pay on their behalf or increase the revenues that they give to us. So I can't speculate on what that might look like. There has been some talk about certain expenses moving provincially. Some of that may have been hinted from some of the feedback that they received from the survey. There may be some things that are clearly like, these are not our responsibilities anymore. And I don't think I'll go too far out on a limb to say that the housing deficit is, we just pay a portion of that. That is a provincial responsibility that we pay a portion of. And I'm not saying that this is on the list, but it is an example of the type of things that perhaps the province would just take on and just say, okay, well, you have no control over that. It's our thing anyway. We'll just kind of take that. So how much the equal part and how much benefit or detriment could happen to municipalities will depend entirely on the province's willingness to fund some of these things to a higher level or not. But it will not be equal. Because I know that for sure, because the stuff that we get now isn't equal, right? I mean, the towns pay for roads and the rurals pay a lot less for roads. They only pay for a certain type of road, for instance. So right now there's a lot of inequity. And I think what they're trying to do is trying to even the playing field. But when you do that, there may be winners and there may be losers. And unless they're willing to fund the difference, that's going to be the challenge that the NSFM and other municipalities will have. It's like, it might benefit Argyle, but what if it doesn't benefit Pictou? How does that work, right? So I hope that answers your question. It will not be equal, but the rest, it would be fairly speculative, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, hearing none. Thank you very much for the report. Next is for decision. And the first one is a second reading of our bylaw 35 repeal. There's two attachments. Now, we've already discussed this, and we passed the first reading, and now we're here to accept the changes. Are there any questions or any comments? Councillor Dick? Okay, it's been moved. It can be moved and seconded, but you'll have your chance to speak once it's seconded. Okay, it's moved and seconded. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. I was just wondering if this is the one where we might be looking at Thursday meetings, or if that's a different.
Thank you. So yes, Councillor Digdon, that is absolutely correct. We are working on repealing this bylaw to replace it with a policy, and I do have the policy here. It is not ready to be brought to you, but we are bringing it to you at the Committee of the Whole on November the 22nd. I do have draft copies for you to take home and look at with you tonight. So that is the next step, but this is the first step, is to repeal this bylaw and then put this into place.
And we may be able to make changes at that next meeting.
That is why I'm giving it to you in plenty of time, so that if
Yep.
you have any comments, yes.
Perfect.
Yep,
Yep,
absolutely.
thank you.
Yep.
If I may, repealing doesn't say that it doesn't approve what you're talking
Correct.
about.
No,
This is just
absolutely not.
repealing.
Yes,
It's a
absolutely.
repeal, okay? Thank you. Any other questions? So we have a motion on the floor. If you're already all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. The next one is a request from Municipality of Shelburne, and it's an attachment, and it's a request. And the letter came to me, and I passed it on to our CAO, because it certainly impacted him. And it's they're requesting that we authorize our CAO to participate on an advisory committee to assist our municipality in guiding possible future marine research projects. And it says that the publication of report of 2021 by the Center of Marine Applied Research called Assessing Climate Change Vulnerability of Seafood Industry Dependent Communities in Nova Scotia. It's a mouthful. The municipality of District of Shelburne has initiated an assessment of the impact, and I guess what they would like our CAO. I've discussed it with the CAO, whether he was okay with this, and he's given me the okay, because it's not going to be including a whole bunch of meetings or whatever. It's, so perhaps if you want to explain a little more on what it will entail so that they feel comfortable.
I mean, thank you, Mr. Warden. I know this council is very sensitive to my health, and you've made that abundantly clear. And you also know that I like to say yes to things, so which may or may not be good for my health. So I'm just going to put that out there. I recognize what your concerns might be. This is an advisory group, so this would not be to do the work. Basically, what this group is looking to do is say, okay, climate change could have an impact on our fishing species. How is that going to impact our communities? And so from my perspective, that has a tremendously potentially detrimental, hopefully not, impact on our lobster fishing and other fishing. The purpose of this group would be to coordinate some of the research that would be required in anticipation of these things potentially happening to our community. I don't know what the details are other than that. I can't say. I know there have been conversations about universities and research, and so they would actually do the work. It wouldn't be municipal work. So it is essentially an advisory group, like what's going on in Argyle, how can Argyle, like that. So I don't want you to, I want you to be concerned about my health, but on this one, I don't think it's an issue, because this is one that would be very low workload from our perspective. If that changes, I'll be the first to let you know, or perhaps the second. Perhaps our deputy CAO might say it before me. But I just wanted to give you that context. They did say they were going to write to the council and ask permission, because they didn't want to do this work in silence or in secret. They wanted it so that you understand that we don't really know what it looks like just yet, but we're trying to get ahead of the game in case there's some really, really bad stuff that could happen with climate.
So I guess we should probably make a motion here that we authorize our CAO, if he's willing to do that, on probation. So anyway, any questions? Anybody have any questions, or are we ready to make a motion on this?
I'll make the motion.
It's moved and seconded. And if there's no question, there is someone.
Thank you. Would we be briefed on what goes on at this advisory committee?
Yes, if I had information that would brief council, it would likely in the early stages be something that would be under an in-camera, but you would be briefed. Yes, as you deserve to be, because if they're using your resources, you should. I say they. If the collective is using your resources, you should know about what's going on. I can say that my input or value on this project is centered, at least from my perspective, around public engagement. If we're going to do something that impacts the species, the marine species, you can be darn well sure that there's a very, very thorough public engagement that would have to happen. So on the heels of learning all of the things that we learned from Charlene before Alex and Alex, I think that we can safely say that the public engagement work they did was second to none. So based on, I'm gonna ride on the coattails of what they've taught me and hopefully help them in this. But if it can be done publicly, I certainly will do that as well.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? So we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, carried. Correspondence, Hillbrook Fire Hall tender, and this is CAO's, if you know what's,
Very quickly,
Very
the
quickly.
fire department had a meeting yesterday to which Scott attended to do boundary review work. And I avoided specifically so he could do boundary review work and not be distracted by what is actually the highest important thing on their minds, which is the new building. So they are basically going to go ahead and go to tender for a new building construction. This has been like over 20 years in the making for some of us. I just wanted you to know that they will be approving that tender to go ahead. There may be some hiccups along the way that we're not aware of, but that is led by them. I was asked to help them in that tendering process, and we did bring in Ian Everett to help us as project manager, because that was the biggest lesson we had when we built our own building, is that, there's a lot of things we don't know what we don't know. So Ian has been quite helpful. Hopefully this comes in at a reasonable budget. I'm not going to presume what that looks like right now, but they intend on going out in December for construction into the next year. And I can assure you that there were a lot of conversations between Eelbrook, Harry Yost, who's the architect, and myself around timing. Like, do not give, the contractors require a lot of time so that they can plan the work accordingly. They're busy. So if you give them a short period, they might bid, but you won't like the price, or they might not bid at all. So, and that's been our experience on other projects. So we've shared that with Eelbrook, who's got the one project. So they are in a rush to get this to go because they have a brand new fire truck that is parked nicely in Wedgeport, which is great for Wedgeport, but not so good for Eelbrook, who paid for it. So that's the update on that. I just wanted you to know that the tender will be coming out, so you might see some stuff that comes out.
Thank you. You're back on.
Just on the next item, before we get into it,
Yes.
I'm going to leave the room.
Okay,
And I don't know if I should declare a conflict of interest or not, but I will,
okay.
in the interest of transparency and making sure that there's no other issues. So I'll stay if there's questions for the prior stuff, but once we move to the next agenda, I'll leave the room.
Okay, good. So any questions for the fire, this report for the fire department? Or I guess there's not a whole lot that we can ask. Tender is going out, so we can move on. The next item is financial requests. I received, and I had it attached. I had it here. I wanted this to be attached to the request. As you all know, or you should know, that we're organizing a food drive for the SAR Social Committee, and it's at the SAR Food Bank. They're expecting a lot of requests this winter. With the price of oil, when you're looking at if you have a brand new tank right now, it was $1,800 and it's gone up dollars to fill a new tank. So even if people have half a tank to fill and you're looking at $900 to $1,000, a lot of people out there are not going to be able to afford this. So what we were approached, I guess Scott and I were approached by our senior safety coordinator, and if we could do a food drive. The RCMP are involved. They're going to have a cruiser. We're going to have a cruiser at the Carl store on the 19th. And Carl store, both stores, Shopper Carl and Carl store, have gotten involved as well. They are going to be supporting this. And what has happened is they have contacted a lot of other businesses in the communities. They didn't go outside, don't think. They're mostly like businesses that belong or whether they run from this municipality, but they're owned by people from the municipality. And they were very successful in getting getting corporate donations towards the food bank. The request here is wondering, and this comes from Carl Storr, it comes from Alain, but it comes as the president of that organization, okay? And which is why he felt being CAO and the asking for this, he felt that maybe he should step down. But here is the request, if you haven't read it. We are requesting special consideration from the municipality of the District of Argyle for support. We would request $3,000 in funding for this one-time event. I would request this type of support under your policy provision for extraordinary events, and donations would go towards the SAR. SAR Wedgeport, the reason he's saying SAR Wedgeport, because they're going to have probably a van at the Wedgeport store. We're not sure yet if that's going to happen there or not. I'm not sure that Wedgeport has an actual food bank. They don't. So anyway, so donations will be payable to the SAR Social Committee if in the interest of council to join our team of corporate sponsors. And that's where he comes in, where it could be a conflict of interest. So we can discuss this, and I guess the letter is posted. So did I read somewheres? Yes. He's been able to get donations in the amount of $7,000 so far. Now that seems like a lot of money for a food bank, but I'm afraid that this year it's going to go. I mean, he's getting requests already, and I say he, and that's the coordinator for the food bank in SAR, and he knows. I mean, people are calling him for wood. Wood has gone up. I was talking to a gentleman today who said he paid $250 2 years ago for a cord of wood, went up to $260 last year, and it's gone up to $340 this year. And the reason it's gone up like that is the cost of fuel. They can't offer that at the price they were doing because of the what it's costing them to get that wood delivered and whatever. So groceries, as you know, I mean, it's going to be a very, very difficult winter for people. So anyway, I will leave that to council to discuss, and it's going to be up to council whether we join with the corporate donations and with how much. Councillor Surratt.
Just a question. Yeah, do we know of any other aid society like that in the municipality, like Pubnico? Does Pubnico have
something?
Has one?
Did you want to? Okay, we've got Councillor.
I can speak maybe
Yes.
on that because
Yeah.
we have Saint Vincent Pub that's
Oh,
in
yes.
West Pumlico that helps with food, oil, whatever a family would need or anything like that. Then we have in East Pumlico, we have the Social Aid Committee, and they do help. Somebody gets into misery, somebody has something really bad happens, they'll go around, they'll do a fundraiser or whatever. And then after that, it would be SAR.
They come from
Yeah.
they
So
come from outside as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
People call from outside.
people will call all avenues, and they've been calling. They call where I work,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
they ask where they can get food or oil or anything like that. The church does help as well because we have a social aid collection once a year, and we have a little bit of money that we can help people with oil or if they need to pay a bill or whatever. Yeah.
I was speaking also, if I may, I was speaking to someone from I guess your area or Amiris Hill area, and they do that. I think once a year they do that, but it's not a stored food bank. They collect and they know where it's going. And once they get it, it's distributed, okay? So they do that. It's like that. Westport may have something going like that. I really, really don't know for sure. Okay, can I put Gordon?
Yep.
Gordon.
Yeah, I do know that they once a year, they'll collect food.
Okay.
But I'm not 100% sure where that goes. I'm not 100% sure if it goes to the
Okay.
food bank or,
This is what I heard.
yeah,
I heard that what was collected in Westport went to the Yarmouth Food Bank.
yeah.
Okay, but don't forget, there's a lot of people from our municipality who end up at the Yarmouth Food
Yeah.
Bank. And I think some of the reasons that is happening is some of the people won't come locally because of the embarrassment where they feel that if they go to Yarmouth, maybe nobody will know kind of thing, okay? So it's, no matter where it goes, it helps, and it helps our municipality, I think. Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just want to add on to what you mentioned, that this is coming from our senior safety coordinator, who approached myself and the warden, because she has clientele that reach out to her. And she had asked the SAR social committee for food, but they did not have
There was
any.
nothing.
There's nothing there right
It's
now.
empty
Zero.
right
It's
now.
empty. There is no food there. So she has no place really to turn to at this point. So that's why it's a kind of an urgency to kind of plan this and, help everybody out, I guess.
Yes, I agree. Okay, I've got Councillor Sonia.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea. With the prices of everything going up. But here's the question: Is there a priority over fuel in groceries, or are they both the same? In other words, if I wanted to give $100, would I be best spent on the money for fuel type thing, money donation, or food?
Well, what I'll tell you with money donations is when they run out of food, that money goes, the money is not just
It's flexible.
saying it's for oil.
Flexible.
We're saying it's a kind of a fuel bank, but I know for a fact that if people came there and there was nothing in the reserves for food, he doesn't give a gift card. He might go bring them to a store. He will buy groceries, or he could call a store, have some kind of an agreement that they cannot, we don't want people going out there and buying cigarettes, and you know what I'm saying? It's either for food or oil or wood or whatever. So to me, the money will be used however the food bank organizers will see fit.
It sounds like money is more versatile then.
To me, because I'll tell you what's happened. In a food bank, you are not allowed to give any food that is past the best before date. Not allowed to give it. Jen, my wife and I went, and we cleaned out the food bank. There wasn't one item in there that wasn't outside. That's how long they haven't had a food drive because of COVID and whatever else. And this is food that's been kind of just sitting there. So we have to clean it out. Now, I've noticed at the church, people bring stuff at the church, and I've noticed there's a couple of bags. People bring stuff almost every week. So anyway, to me, it doesn't matter. Food is good, whatever. Yeah. Councillor Digdon.
Thank you. And yes, but what the senior safety manager or supervisor person that was saying is right about the food bank down here running out of food. Because I personally took her up food from down home, and that brought it up to her here for some people in this area. But it is going to be it's hard out there now for a lot of people, and it's going to get harder by all means. I would definitely make a motion that we give $3,000 towards this one-time event. And I feel as though as a council and as counselors, we have to be there for our people
Mhm.
and we have to help them the best we can. And I'm
Okay.
making this motion.
Can we second that motion? It's moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Question?
Question called. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, carried. Thank you very much. I know the food bank is going to be very, very appreciative, of these donations. There's no doubt in my mind. Well, there we go. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we have another financial, request, and it's Clement School, $500, and this would be Councillor Saunier.
Thank you, Warden. Before I make a motion, I'd just like to let everybody know what this is all about. It's about truth and reconciliation in the Plymouth School. They want to paint a new crosswalk symbolizing the truth and reconciliation. And this paint will be orange with white feathers apparently on it. So the request is for the paint in the stencils. And anybody that doesn't know what this looks like can Google it on Truth and Reconciliation crosswalks. And they're very attractive, they look nice. Anyhow, I make a motion that we donate $500 to the Plymouth School to buy the material necessary for this.
Is that a community grant from your?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Any questions on that? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. Next, we have agenda topics for next meeting, notice of motion by councilors. Anything for next meeting? Okay, seeing none, we will go to question period. Scott is giving the no. Number 16, in camera, so we need a motion to go in camera. Seconded, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary, motion carried. We will now go in camera.